Hello fellow bog friends, my name is Danielle Bell. I'm the administrative assistant for the Friends of the Cedarburg Bog, and I am here today at the Watts Lake Trail right off of 33 on the north end of the Cedarburg Bog. And today we're going to go take a short walk and look at the different trees that make up the Cedarburg Bog upland areas. So the Cedarburg Bog has a couple different plant communities. One of them is the Tamarack and Cedar swamps, and these are wetland areas that have tree canopy in them, and so we're going to take a look at those. And there are also some areas of the Cedarburg Bog that are upland areas. So these are drier, they are deposits left from the glaciers, and in these drier areas you have a different plant community. So different trees are growing here, different wildflowers, and those are the beech and maple upland areas. And both of those communities can be seen at the north end of the bog, and we are going to go take a look. So let's go check it out and see what trees we can find and look at how to identify those different trees. Here we are in the beech maplewood uplands. So this is a deciduous forest. The trees here will lose their leaves every fall. The beech trees, American beech, like this one here, which has really gray bark, they actually hold on to their leaves throughout the winter. So you can see those, a nice pale yellow orangish color that will be on the trees throughout the winter, and then they lose them in the spring. They're not photosynthesizing or anything in the winter. It's just a characteristic of them and an easy way to identify them. A couple other ways to identify them are, like I said, really smooth gray bark. They have really thin bark, thin cambium layer, and it's a really easy way to identify them any time of year. So here we have the buds of the American beech tree. Very long, about a ½ inch or so, 3/4 of an inch in length, and you can see the different scales on them. And that is holding next year's leaf. So in the spring these leaves will break and we'll have new leaves for the beech trees. They also have beech nuts, and these look like, to me, like little Pac-Man. They are the seeds that are dropped in the fall. A lot of different wildlife use these as a way to support themselves throughout the winter. Squirrels will cache them, birds will eat them, different mammals are attracted to them to give them that energy boost that they need throughout the winter. Beech trees are on their westernmost extent here in the Cedarburg Bog. They usually don't make it past the middle of the state. Mostly common on the east coast of the United States, but we do have some obviously in Wisconsin, mostly in southeastern Wisconsin. And as you move away from this area, you're going to see less and less of them and more oak tree communities that will dominate the landscape. They kind of stick to that southern part of the tension zone that runs throughout the state, and you usually don't see them too far past Waukesha County, moving west. Here's another upper canopy deciduous tree. This is the Basswood. In winter they're really easy to identify by their red football-shaped buds. They stand out quite nicely amongst the snow. Basswoods have very smooth bark when they're younger, and then as they grow older they start to get a bark that looks similar to a maple tree, so it can be a little bit hard to tell them apart, but their buds do make them stand out and are an easy way to identify them if you can get close to them. In the spring they have these wonderful smelling flowers that are usually pretty small, so you usually smell them way before you can see them, and bees and different insects will just flock to those flowers for a pollen and nectar source. So here we have two different leaves. We have the beech on the left and the basswood on the right. So the basswood is much bigger. The base is a little offset. If you're looking at it, this lobe is lower than this one. So that's a distinguishing characteristic. And then on the beech here, you can see that wavy margin. Another tree that's easy to identify by its bark is the paper birch. It has this nice white bark. It's a little bit darker as it ages, but it has this peeling bark that looks like paper, and that's where it gets its name. Native Americans would use this paper, the bark, as material for canoes, for their basket weaving, because it's highly rot resistant and also it's waterproof. So made a good carrying tool for Native Americans when they didn't have stuff like we do today. So it was really highly depended on by them. And it's really interesting because it is so rot resistant that if you see a downed birch tree, you will actually see the bark remaining and the hardwood inside will actually be broken down. But the paper part of it, the exterior bark, will still be present. The catkins are used as wildlife food, and some of the fruit capsules will also be used by birds and small mammals as a resource. Paper birch you will find along the edges. They like to be a little bit in the wetter areas, keeping their feet wet, so they'll be in the swamps next to the tamaracks and the white cedars. But you will also find them in more upland areas and on some of the glacial deposit islands throughout the bog. This tree here is one of our conifer species that we have in the Cedarburg Bog. It's the white cedar, or also known as the arborvitae. These trees are great for wildlife, especially in the winter, because they keep their needles, their leaves, throughout the whole season, and so it provides a really good place for birds and small rodents, mammals to hide out during a big snowstorm, during those really blustery cold days. They provide really good cover for those animals and help them stay safe. The conifer swamps of the Cedarburg Bog are really dominant, especially along the edges where it's, you know, sometimes wet during the season, sometimes dry. Yeah, really another tree similar to the paper birch, where they are rot resistant. A lot of you may know about like cedar fence posts and stuff. That's all made out of these white cedar. All right, the other conifer that we have in the Cedarburg Bog is the tamarack. And it's actually interesting because it is a deciduous conifer. So it has needle-like leaves, but it loses them every fall. They get a bright yellow color and then they drop. And then they're left naked, just like a regular deciduous tree like the beech or birch trees. In the spring they have cones, which is why they're considered a conifer. They have cones and they're bright red in the spring, reddish pink, really cool next to their new foliage. The texture of their needles is super soft, so not like you would think of a spruce or a pine tree. Tamarack has really soft needles. They like to keep their feet wet, so they're found in the tamarack swamps of the Cedarburg Bog alongside the white cedars. They're easily identified by their buds and their tiny little branches that they have on the bigger branches, the little spurs that they have. That's a good way to identify them. And their cones stay on the tree for a couple years, so you can usually see the previous year, if not 2 years, worth of cones on the trees during the fall and during the summer. Thank you so much for joining me on this little walk that we did along the north end of the Cedarburg Bog. If you want to come out and experience the trail in person, you are welcome to. This is one of the public access points on the north end right off of Highway 33. And we do have these great interpretive signs, so as you're walking you can learn a little bit more about the different trees, the different mammals, insects, dragonflies, all the animals and the wildlife that call the Cedarburg Bog home. In the meantime, please follow us on our social media accounts. We have a Facebook page and an Instagram account where we post pictures and happenings of the bog, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel and you will be notified then when we have a new video posted. In the meantime, happy holidays, stay well, and we'll see you in 2021.